Frost Death Knight is a fantastic melee specialization. This is my beginner guide for it for patch 10.2 or season 3 of Dragonflight. It's going to help you get to up to ahead of the curve in heroic raiding and or keystone master. But I will say, if you are looking at doing mythic raiding or keystones and mythic plus over 20, this is going to give you a really solid foundation, and there's going to be no information overload in here. First of all, we're going to look at the stat priority. This is my priority pyramid, as I like to call it, meaning that at the bottom where you have the largest section, this is what you're going to want the most of. Now, Frost Death Knights rely heavily on crit, so you're going to want as much as possible of that, then going on to haste, then mastery, and then verse being the least one you are going to want of. Now, I will say, don't worry too much about this. If you're gearing up and you have an eye level increase, generally this is what you're always going to pick. Before I actually show you the talents and core rotation, I just want to go over some of the main defensive and offensive abilities and utilities that you have at your disposal. I do always recommend, once you're more comfortable and you've practiced a bit with this spec, that you do look through the spellbook, and the same will apply to talents when we get onto them, that you do look through and just see everything that you do have, which can be a bit overwhelming, as I said, once you're more comfortable. But these are the core ones that I think you should be aware of from the offset. So up here on the top, we have defensive. First is an anti-magic zone. This is going to reduce spell damage, and it's also a big absorb. And it's like a big purple dome that you can actually put over the entire party or area you're standing to help protect you and your allies. And then the second is going to be Icebound Fortitude. And this is quite simply a damage reduction defensive for you individually. We have another one down here, which is Lichborn. This is going to reduce your damage taken, and it's going to give you some leech as well, and it's going to give you some immunities, and this is a really, really fantastic defensive cooldown. Now, the last one on here is Empower Rune Weapon, and this is going to give you haste, and it's going to give you more runes and runic power. These two things are the two resources that we have at our disposal, and they will be managing as a Frost Death Knight. One other thing I will say is, as a Frost DK, you actually have your own enchants for weapons, which is called Rune Engraving. And in Archerus, which is the Death Knight starting area, upstairs, there's actually a Rune Forge, and I'll put a picture here so you can see it. And this is actually where you're going to put your enchantments on your weapons. And this is specifically for Death Knights. So basically, we have an uber weapon enchant. The one that I am going to recommend for the build we are using is going to be called Rune of the Fallen Crusader. So enchant that onto your two-handed weapon at the Rune Forge, and you're going to be good to go. Now let's look at the Frost DK's utilities. First up here, we have Raise Ally, which is quite simply a battle res, meaning you can res somebody in combat, which is extraordinarily useful. Then we have Chains of Ice, which is a 70%, I think it's 70% slow on the target, which is very useful, of course, as well. Then we have Death Grip, which can pull an enemy towards you. This is good for getting enemies out of things or into things or somewhere else, just moving them around. Very, very, very crucial utility there. Death's Advance is quite simply a speed buff, and it stops you from actually being slowed as well. And then we have Mind Freeze, which is your kick or interrupt, as it's otherwise known. Okay, now on to talents. This is the beginner build I would recommend. And just to clarify, this is the two-handed obliteration build, meaning we are going to be using a two-handed weapon for this build. And I'm not going to go through every single talent and what they do. Again, I would say just do that in your own time or when you are more comfortable with the spec. But I will put an import string down below in the description so you can import this straight into your game. If you do have any questions or queries about any of the talents I'm showing you here, then feel free to just join my Discord and I can help you with any questions you may have. So here we are at the training dummies. I will mention this weak aura I have in the center of my screen is one that I have for each class, and I'll link that down below in the description as well. So you can see here there are 6 little boxes, and these are your runes, and we're going to have some abilities that are going to spend runes, and these will be automatically regenerated as we're in combat. Our second resource is runic power, and that is this one here at 0. And some of our rune spending abilities are going to generate runic power that we can then spend on other abilities. I'm going to go through some of the core abilities and cooldowns that we have again, just before we get into the rotation so that you understand what we have and what we're using. So first up here on my action bars at the bottom, we have Obliterate. This is going to cost 2 runes and is a single target damage attack. We then have Howling Blast here, and this is going to cost 1 rune. We then have Frost Strike, which is going to cost runic power. We then have Soul Reaper, and this is only going to be used when the target is at 35% health or lower. We have Remorseless Winter, which is a 20-second sort of mini cooldown, and we're going to use this pretty much on cooldown. We also have Pillar of Frost, which is going to increase your strength by 25% for 12 seconds. Going to use this pretty much on cooldown as well. And then, of course, we have the Empower Rune Weapon, which is going to give you 15% haste. It's going to generate runes and runic power for you. And again, pretty much going to use that on cooldown. When I say that you should use these on cooldown, I would suggest that you use your Pillar of Frost and your Empower Rune Weapon together. So this is only on a 1-minute cooldown. This is on a 2-minute cooldown. You should be able to use this every minute, and every second minute, use both of these together, because remember, this is increasing your strength. And then this is basically meaning that you can output more attacks quickly because it's giving you haste and generating more resources for you, meaning that with that increased strength, you can get stuff out quicker. So it kind of is a double whammy, as I would say. This one here is Chill Streak, and this is on a 45-second cooldown. Use this on cooldown as much as possible as well. This is going to benefit heavily from our tier set in patch 10.2. Okay, so let's actually get into it. As you can see here, we are auto-attacking. And when we auto-attack, it's going to cause this proc here. And this is called Killing Machine. Now, as you can see, it's procced on my Obliterate. And what this basically does is it's guaranteeing a critical strike for our Obliterate. You can now see that I have another proc here, and this one is called Rhyme. And this is going to make my Howling Blast a lot more powerful. Always use this when it procs. So again, our auto attacks are going to proc Killing Machine on our Obliterate, which is a guaranteed crit, and our Obliterate strikes are going to proc Rhyme on our Howling Blast, making it a lot stronger. And that's when we're going to obviously use these 2 procs. Now, in a general rotation sense, outside of these procs, we're going to use our runes, which we have here. We have 6 of. We're going to use these on Obliterate. This is our rune spender. Again, we're going to use our procs of Rhyme on Howling Blast. We're going to spend any runic power that we've built up. You can see now here, I've built up 100 of it. We're going to spend that on Frost Strike. So Frost Strike is our runic power spender. Again, now we've gotten a critical proc on our Obliterate, so we're going to use that. Now we've got Rhyme on our Howling Blast, we're going to use that. And then we're going to spend that runic power on Frost Strike. That's how that bit of the rotation works. Then we're going to use Soul Reaper, like I said before, when the target is at 35% health or lower. And then we're going to use our Remorseless Winter, our Pillar of Frost and Empower Rune Weapon together, and our Chill Streak. And then again, yeah, you can see we've got these procs here, which we're going to use, and they proc a lot. This is a really, really fun spec. And then we're just going to use our Frost Strike on cooldown to spend that runic power, and then Obliterate. And then again, we're going to spend those runes to get more procs and spend our runic power on our Frost Strike. And that is pretty much it for the basic beginner rotation for Frost DK. It is an incredibly simple rotation, but with all the procs happening so quickly, it's a really, really fun spec to play. And I hope this made sense to you guys. I always try and make these as straightforward as possible. Of course, you can go a lot more in-depth to these, but this is the beginner build that I recommend when you are starting out. Don't forget to check out my other class guides. If you look at my channel, you will see I have an absolutely insane amount of specialization guides, and I'm always happy for you guys to ask any questions. And if you do have any, just put them down below in the comments or join my Discord, where you'll probably get an even faster response.